Hey folks, I'm at Woodside tram stop, just on the outskirts of Croydon. It was formerly Woodside railway station, and about 150 years ago, on a race day, there would have been horses led off the trains here, up the slope, and on their way to Croydon racetrack, which is a very short distance from here. So where did it all begin? Well, the earliest records show that in the year 1286, over at the Duppers Hill area in Croydon, there were a series of tournaments held, really, of which horse racing was part. Typically they would have been jousting, that kind of thing. And in that particular year, William de Warenne, son and heir of the Earl of Surrey and Sussex, was killed in a tournament held at Duppers Hill. And it was most definitely suggested it was murder rather than just an accident that may have happened during jousting. So we've established the first place, Duppers Hill. Then moving on to the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, we know that she attended a race meeting in 1585. In fact, they constructed a huge stand for the Queen and the royal party. They travelled in big numbers then, and probably still do now with security detail and the like. And these races were very popular because the Queen attended further meetings in 1587 and 1588. Now in the 17th and 18th centuries, records show that there was a race course that actually stretched round about 3.5 miles from just south of Croydon along the sort of run of the Brighton Road to the area called Stoat's Nest, which is what we now know as Coulsdon. Moving on to the 1800s, steeplechasing had become very popular, and the first steeplechase meeting was held in 1858 at Selhurst Farm, which is roughly between where the Jolly Sailor pub is and Selhurst Wood. In 1860, the races moved to Weaver's Farm. It was on the upper Addiscombe Road, but over towards the Park Hill area. The land's now occupied by Park Hill Road and Park Hill Rise. And the grandstand for that particular location was built on an area that's now where Chichester Road is. So the big change happened in 1866, where the Park Hill land was sold off for development. Interestingly, it was around about a century later that it was redeveloped again, but they needed to find a new home. And Stroud Green Farm, which was just over to my left, is where the location would be for the Croydon racetrack. So what I'm going to now do is to highlight the locations, both with the best visual that I can get using the camera and where I've got permitted access, if you like. You'll understand more when I get round there. So I'll point out some of those locations to get a much clearer idea of the layout and basically follow the track around. So we'll catch up in the first location round the corner. So very broadly, not that you can see anything from here, it was in that plot of land, but don't worry that you can't see anything at all now. It will become a little bit clearer through the use of maps and the like. So we've got Oasis Academy, Shirley Park. Your Ashburton Library here. Well-stocked library. They have other events and events for young kids and the like. But I spy some greenery. Yeah, so this is the, looking back, it's a bit easier on the eyes. So this is the Oasis Academy, so you've got the school and the library. It's half term this week, so it's much quieter. Now, I'm not going to go too far. It's an open entrance, but it's probably mainly for the school. But it's the first taste of actual land that part of the racecourse would have occupied. Now, quite difficult to join all the various elements together, but towards the centre right of the picture, there's a rugby post. And I believe in that general area, there was a grandstand. Because as you can see from the layout of the course, the shape of the course, it's like a donut, but it's got this runoff where the grandstand was. Hopefully putting all those elements together, you can get an idea of that part of the actual racecourse. What I'm now doing is heading back on myself round towards Long Lane, because that's where we see a really good stretch of the course, or the track as it ran around. One of the reasons to build the station was to accommodate the races in the area, and as well as that helping the horses and jockeys and teams and everything arrive, it meant that a number of ne'er-do-wells came along from various parts of London and beyond perhaps, and were able to, let's say, take advantage of some of the punters. So in the unlikely event that you won some money on the horses, there'd be a good chance that you would have lost it from card sharps and tricksters and con men, and plus there were people selling ale and spirits and all that sort of stuff. It just became very boisterous, and there was a lot of crime. It wasn't a pleasant place to be, and that built up over the years from 1866. The reason I was glancing to the right there is that I'd read that number 418 was the location for the booking office, but it stops at the medical practice, and then there's just a new build, so there would be absolutely no reference there now from any original booking office. Yes, you can imagine the large numbers of people and horses, noise, as people made their way the short distance down from the station just up the road there into, well, we've got the fire station here now, lovely fire station. We are now entering Long Lane here, and on the right hand side is where we would see, or start to see, the curving round of the track of that kind of oval slash donut shape. Now, this location is quite key to help tell the story. I'm on a branch of Stroud Greenway that connects one long stretch of Stroud Greenway and runs parallel with Long Lane, and I'm right in the middle. Now, the track went right along this stretch. So, if I'd have been standing here on race day between 1866 and 1890, I'd have probably been trampled. But I thought this was a nice way of illustrating it, because this section of road actually crosses the whole part of the track, the whole width of the track. So we've got Stroud Greenway that runs along there straight ahead of the camera, and then we've got this sort of connecting road that comes down, and we've got Long Lane and my shadow there. So it's quite something. It's starting to bring that to life now, visualize it a bit more. So every time your car and you may have gone from Stroud Greenway to Long Lane, using this little connecting road, you've crossed the racetrack. I'm going to head along now towards Bywood Avenue and connect up with the playing fields, and then we get another kind of imaginary view, but actually it's on the site, on the actual land of where the track was. So let's go and have a look at that. Well, I've arrived at Ashburton playing fields, and this is really where we get an opportunity to see what would have been the largest stretch of the racecourse. Again, we have to use some imagination, of course, so I will use a map to help that along. But just looking at it today, it's a lovely open space, football pitches and just loads of opportunity for recreation and dog walking and the like. And then we've got the Stroud Greenway housing area just over the back there. As the best I can tell, where I'm standing on the far side of the field as I entered from Bywood Avenue, the track would have wrapped around, so kind of around this area. And then straight ahead on this side, because in that direction is the area that we couldn't really see. It's the school playing field, sort of straight ahead of camera now. And that is where the track would have finished, where the grandstand would have been when I mentioned the rugby posts. And all that hopefully will give you a feel for how the layout of the racecourse was back in the day between 1866 and 1890. So what became of it? Well, this boisterousness, drunkenness, moral sewage was a term that I'd read that I think only got worse as the years went by, was really causing some issues for the neighbours, the residents. And they did complain. Now in 1879 it was necessary to have to licence a racecourse, and at each renewal the residents put in some protests and tried to get the licence turned down, the licence request turned down. And in 1890 they were successful. And that was it. That was the end of horse racing in Croydon, never to return. Afterwards, there was an application made for a golf course to be laid out here. So Beckenham Golf Club bought this plot of land. And it's really that is how I got to learn of this story, because I was doing some research into the Stroud Green Waterworks over near the Shirley Oaks Village area. And looking back on maps, I found Beckenham Golf Course. Only from there and peeling back the layers, I came to the Croydon racetrack, and the rest is history. Pre-war, the golf club closed down, and I'm pretty certain the land would have been turned over to growing crops and the like, helping the war effort generally. And the council bought this land in post-war years, and they developed housing, playing fields, and the school that we see now. So it's been protected through the development that was permitted at that time, and pleasing that well over 100 years since race meetings ended here, there's still some lovely green spaces that people can enjoy. That is the story. Horse racing in Croydon. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please leave a little like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate that. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.